This presentation is on maintaining quality during rapid growth of a company in association with RQA. My name's Sarah Howard. Here's a picture so you can see who's talking. I currently work as Regulatory and Quality Governance Director at Retroscreen Virology Limited. I've previously worked in QA at AstraZeneca and Huntingdon Life Sciences. I've been involved with RQA for a number of years. Notably, I've been a member of the Publications Committee, including a term as chair, a member of the RQA Working Party promoting the QA profession. I've co-authored the booklet, The Role of QA in Outsourcing, and have also presented at the annual conference. A company that sees increased turnover of up to 30% a year would be described as a growth company, and this would typically be the maximum amount of growth that would be expected in the pharmaceutical and CRO industry, and that could include mergers or acquisitions. Retroscreen Virology Limited is a CRO and commercial investigator site specialising in running the Viral Challenge Model clinical trial. Retroscreen's experienced 2 consecutive years of growth at over 200% per year, which is unprecedented. And this is organic growth, which means that the expansion has been through doing more of what we already do, not by mergers and acquisitions of other companies. In the last 2 years, the number of sites that Retroscreen operate from has increased from just 1 site in London to 6 sites across the UK, and staff numbers have increased week on week from around 60 to over 400 today. As you can imagine, this has posed significant challenges to me as Regulatory and Quality Governance Director in assuring continued compliance with GCP during this period and maintaining the quality management system. So 3 years ago, Retroscreen were a typical small company, 60 people, 2 clinical trials a year, and essentially the company was run using paper and Excel. So everything that needed to be done, from planning studies, organising studies, collecting data, reporting, through to HR and finance, everything was done on paper and Excel. However, during the growth of opening new sites, much larger volumes of data being handled, and much larger volumes of new staff at both the London sites and at the new sites has led to the significant challenges. The paper and Excel systems soon began to creak at the seams with the growth, and it was identified early on that we needed computer systems. Every department thought their computer system was the most important. So people who identified the need for computer systems were finance to forecast and manage their costs, systems for management of the volunteer data, systems for collection of source data, and for my department, I wanted a system for managing SOPs and essential documents too. Of course, implementing a new computer system isn't as simple as going out, buying it, bringing it back, plugging it in and starting to use it. You need to make sure you have the right suitably trained and qualified staff to select the system in the first place, as well as know how to validate and implement the system. We needed SOPs to cover each phase of the validation, and really we needed to make sure that we had a phased approach for implementation that was appropriate to the growing needs of the business. Not everybody could have their computer system straight away. So we had to do a careful analysis of our needs, prioritise which was the most urgent, and implement this phased approach. Additionally, we had to employ consultants to advise on what was the best approach. The next topic I want to talk about is training, and in particular documentation of training really became problematic through the growth period. I think it's fair to say that if you have over 100 members of staff, a paper-based training record becomes very difficult to maintain. For example, it's difficult to document management reviews if your manager doesn't sit on the same site as you, or you don't see them very often. If employees are being asked to move from one site to another to assist with opening a site or training other staff, then they can move that training record with them, but then it could easily get lost or just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. For example, during a client audit or regulatory audit, if a training record's requested, where is it? Oh, John Smith actually he's gone to Manchester, so his training record's there, having to get it scanned over, etc. A particular problem with training and documentation of training in a compliant way were bank staff. So bank staff are used by RetroScreen fairly regularly, and they're not permanent employees, but they work on short-term projects or cover shifts when higher staff numbers are required. So, for example, on the day of IMP dosing, you need to have more medically trained staff on the unit than on another day. Bank staff still have to have the same training as any other member of permanent staff, and that's whether it's generic competency training or study-specific training. And getting management to understand that those staff have to go through the same training requirements as permanent staff was quite difficult. The system, any training record system, has to be GCP compliant, and that covers every single person on the delegation log for the study. It became clear that we needed really an electronic system for documentation of training, but of course that brought all the challenges that I've just discussed around implementation of new computer systems. Really, we had to train managers to make sure that they were fully aware they couldn't just get a member of bank staff in and put them straight to work. They couldn't bypass the system just because they were busy. And really planning of resources to ensure those bank staff coming in were given adequate time to train before being asked to work on a study was key to their success. SOPs are an essential part of the quality management system, and as a small company we utilised paper SOPs. We had folders of SOP in each area that needed them, the labs, the clinics, the offices, and we documented the review and approval steps of new and updated SOPs on paper with wet ink signatures. With the growth, the need for new SOPs, work instructions and document templates increased as systems were put under strain with increased use. Many SOPs had to be updated to amend the roles and responsibilities section as new job titles were joining the company, and in some cases the old SOPs required for the head of a department, previously maybe 10 people in their department, to sign off, which wasn't unreasonable. However, with a department of 80 to 100, the head of department wasn't going to be the one to sign off. This was delegated to somebody else, so the SOPs needed to be updated. All SOPs go through a QC review and a QA review. So previously, with the small number of SOPs required, this was done on an ad hoc, on-demand basis. However, this became impossible and booking systems had to be implemented for QC and QA. With the increase in studies, we saw an increase in the number of client audits. And of course, each client look at your SOP system and then they tended to make recommendations or audit findings around them. So more SOPs needed to be updated. It was clear that this paper system just wasn't working anymore, and the computer system we wanted for document management was prioritised and was one of the first systems that we implemented at RetroScreen, as really this system underpins the quality of all the other subsequent systems. And we could use it as an example of how to validate a system, being the QA department system. So we selected a system called QMAS, and their doc compliance module is a document management system, but we selected it because of its ability to use electronic signatures, which was essential when a QA person could be on a different site to the author and the management on a different site again. And also collaborative review of documents, so different people's comments on a document could be seen, could be entered, done at the same time, and everyone could see it. We also had to dedicate staff for SOP management, whereas before it could have just been a part-time job for somebody who had another job as well, like QA. And of course assign a system owner and ensure they were adequately trained. CAPA is another important part of the quality management system, and CAPA management was an area of challenge in the growth period. Previously, RetroScreen used a paper form for people to raise CAPAs, perform root cause analysis and assign actions, and these were all tracked on an Excel sheet. This system worked to some extent, but as the numbers of CAPAs increased and the number of departments increased, as well as the number of staff, so knowing who was responsible for which action on a CAPA, the paper system became more difficult. But actually the main challenge was in training staff to know when to raise a CAPA, because many of the new staff who were starting at RetroScreen didn't come from a clinical research background and didn't know what CAPA meant or when it was appropriate to raise a CAPA, and also just didn't know how to do the root cause analysis that went with it. So training in this area was key in CAPA management, including root cause analysis. We set targets on the monthly KPI report with regard to CAPAs, but we had to keep reviewing this and amending it because we didn't want staff and management to feel that their measure for CAPA was always in the red and was never going to be achieved. It was almost acceptable to have overdue CAPAs during this period because it was better that people raised them and had the CAPAs there and the actions rather than just didn't, and the issues went unnoticed, unmanagement, and occurred again. We are now using QMAS. There's another module of QMAS for CAPAs which we're implementing at the moment, so this should help with CAPAs in general in RetroScreen. The increased numbers of operational staff has meant that we needed increased numbers of QA staff to support them. This needs further intensified by the constant changes in procedures, new sites, new staff, which all contribute to almost everything being classed as high risk. It's all very well saying we're going to implement a risk-based approach to our audit programme, but if you can only assign something as low risk if it's stable, and in RetroScreen nothing was stable. So the increased number of audits meant even more QA staff were needed. We also, within QA, provided all the training in the company on GCP and all the extra bits of GCP such as CAPA, root cause analysis, data protection. So really QA were key. Luckily for us, senior management did recognise the importance of maintaining quality during this growth period and did understand the risks associated with the rapid growth, and they did allow unsanctioned recruitment for new QA positions. However, this isn't as easy as it sounds and is actually a challenge in itself to find people who are appropriately qualified and experienced in QA, but also who thrive in this slightly mad environment that's changing all the time. And really I found that being as honest as possible at the interview stage about the culture, the environment, and the lack of certainty about what was happening was really important to make sure we got the right people for the team. So, in summary, RetroScreen Virology has seen unprecedented growth over the last 2 years, And this has necessitated a lot of change in the quality management system to ensure continued GCP compliance and a high level of quality throughout every aspect of the organisation. This has been possible by recognising the need for changing systems, the active recruitment of QA staff, and basic GCP training rolled out at all levels and reiterating the requirements of the SOPs.
The RQA is a leading global professional association. We are a UK-based not-for-profit organisation dedicated to informing and advancing our members and providing status and visibility for individuals concerned with the quality of research and development relating to pharmaceuticals, chemicals and medical devices. Go to www.therqa.com. Thank you.